For years, every Heartland fan has held on to a sliver of hope, a whispered question in the quiet corners of the internet. What if Ty Borden wasn't truly gone? His departure left a void that has defined the ranch since season 14, a ghost limb the family learned to live without. But what if season 19 offered not a ghost, but a man? Heartland has never been a place for simple answers. Every sunrise comes with the risk of a storm, every healing with the memory of a scar. And every reunion is a long, hard-won journey, Kaz. What you are about to read is pure speculation, a single path through a forest of possibilities, a hopeful imagining of how Ty might find his way back to Amy, back to Lindy, back to the home that has waited for him. This is not canon, merely a what-if carried on the wind, a story for those of us who believe in impossible comebacks. It could all start on a crisp, early autumn morning, the kind where the air is sharp, and the fallen leaves crunch underfoot. Jack Bartlett, out for his usual pre-dawn check of the fence line, might pause by the creek. He's not a man given to flights of fancy, but he sees something that makes him dismount. On the muddy bank, nearly washed away, is a single, clear boot print. It's a print he knows as well as his own, the worn-down heel and specific tread of the work boots he gave Ty for his 21st birthday. Jack tells himself it's a coincidence, a trick of the light. He kicks dirt over the print and heads back to the house, the quiet weight of it settling in his chest. He decides not to mention it to Amy. Her life has finally found a peaceful rhythm, and he won't be the one to disrupt it over a ghost's footprint. Or a ghost's footprint. Miles away in her Vancouver office, Lou Fleming is wading through a sea of emails for her mayoral duties. An alert pops up from a northern BC conservation group she supports. The subject line is innocuous: Grizzly Relocation Project Update. Lou nearly deletes it, but a thumbnail image catches her eye. It shows a group of rangers in the remote wilderness of the Great Bear Rainforest. In the background, partially obscured by a float plane's wing, a man is tending to a sedated bear. He's wearing a familiar faded denim jacket, and his posture, the careful, gentle way he handles the animal, is so achingly familiar it makes Lou's heart stop. She enlarges the photo, but the resolution is poor, his face a blur of pixels. It could be a stranger. It could be the answer to a prayer. Lou saves the image to a hidden folder on her computer, a digital vault of maybes she has kept for years, too afraid to show Amy. She knows is a dangerous thing to unleash alone. She calls Lisa first, knowing she'll get a dose of measured pragmatism. Lisa agrees the resemblance is uncanny, but cautions against jumping to conclusions. We need more than a blurry photo before we break Amy's heart all over again, she advises. Tim, patched in from a rodeo in Alberta, has no time for caution. What more do we need? That's him. We have to go, Lou. We have to find out. Jack, on the other line from the ranch, listens to them all, his voice calm and steady. He admits he saw something unsettling himself that morning. They agree on a path forward, a secret investigation. They will gather undeniable proof, something solid and real, before they ever bring this impossible hope to Amy's door. Georgie, home for a rare break from her European jumping circuit, throws herself into the task. With her sharp mind and late-night hours, she dives into the digital world. She scours social media feeds of environmental groups, looking for mentions of a skilled vet working pro bono in remote locations. She finds a blog post from a wildlife photographer mentioning a quiet Canadian man, a doctor, T, who miraculously saved his sled dog from a wolf trap in a remote First Nations community. The photographer mentions the man used an old alias, Tim Rowan, a name that makes Georgie's blood run cold. Ty used that name once before on an undercover case. She cross-references the location with flight manifests and starts building a timeline, a chain of dominoes ready to fall. Scott, sworn to secrecy, helps from his end. He searches veterinary credentialing databases for any activity linked to Ty. He finds nothing recent, but uncovers a request from 2 years prior, filed from a clinic in Prince Rupert for records pertaining to old injuries. A severe shoulder wound from a gunshot and a healed leg fracture. The request was flagged and denied because the patient was deceased, but the coincidence is too great to ignore. Scott knows it could be identity fraud, but the combination of details keeps him awake at night. Meanwhile, Amy is thriving. Her program for at risk youth and rescue horses has gained national attention. Her days are full of purpose, of helping kids find their confidence and horses find their trust. Her friendship with Nathan has deepened into a quiet, steady comfort. Steady comfort. They fix fences together, share late night coffee, and for the first time, Amy can picture a future that isn't just an echo of her past. But every night, she finds herself in the loft, her hand resting on Ty's dusty textbook, the air still faintly smelling of the leather conditioner he used. She allows herself a moment of quiet gratitude for the love they shared, and then she closes the door, choosing to live in the present. The present shatters on a Tuesday. A courier delivers a water-damaged cardboard box to the ranch, addressed simply to Amy, Heartland. Lisa is there to sign for it, her hand trembling as she recognizes the handwriting on the label, however faint. She and Jack open it in the barn, away from the main house. Inside, nestled in dried pine needles, is a leather-bound journal. The first half is filled with Ty's familiar handwriting, notes on equine genetics. The second half contains only a few recent entries in a shakier hand. It describes treating a grizzly, the bite of the coastal wind, and a recurring dream of a woman with blonde hair and a smiling child. The last entry is a gut punch. The memory is a ghost I can't catch. I don't know who I am, but I know I am lost. If this book finds its way home, it's because a part of me remembers the way. Tucked into the back cover is a small, hand-carved wooden wolf, its style unmistakably Ty's. Stake. It holds a single dried fireweed blossom. Coordinates are faintly scribbled below the drawing, pointing to a remote inlet on the BC coast. That night, the secret keepers gather around the kitchen table. Jack, Lou, Lisa, Tim, Georgie, and Scott. The evidence is laid out. The photo, the blog post, the records request the journal. Tim is ready to charter a plane immediately. Scott argues for a more strategic approach, involving local authorities. Jack, his voice thick with emotion, says their only duty is to Amy. She deserves to know, but she deserves the truth, not another heartbreak. They vote. Tim and Scott will go. Jack and Lisa will hold down the fort. Lou will manage communications, and Georgie will continue her digital search. They swear an oath of silence. The next morning, Lindy runs into the kitchen, her eyes bright. Mommy, Grandpa was humming Daddy's song by the barn last night. Amy freezes, a coffee cup halfway to her lips. Ty had a specific tuneless hum he would use when he was deep in thought. She tells herself it was just Jack that she's hearing things, but the feeling of unease lingers, a strange, hopeful flutter in her chest. She starts having dreams, vivid and strange. Ty walking along a misty shoreline. Ty calming a wild horse under a canopy of giant cedars. Ty standing at the Heartland gate, waiting. Each morning she wakes with a sense of anticipation she can't explain. On Monday, Tim and Scott leave, their official story a flimsy excuse about a veterinary conference. Amy hugs them both, a sudden lump in her throat. She can't shake the feeling that this is more than just a trip. 2 days later, they're in a float plane flying over the stunning, rugged coastline of British Columbia. The coordinates from the journal lead them to a tiny off-the-grid community. The locals are wary of outsiders. A shop owner mentions a quiet man who lived in a secluded cabin down the inlet. A man who kept to himself but had a gift with animals. They called him the Forest Vet. An elder from the local First Nation tells them the man left weeks ago, heading north after a bad forest fire swept through the area. He left a message, she said, for anyone who came looking. Tell them I'm following the salmon. Tim and Scott, guided by a local fisherman, head north. They travel by boat through dense fog and relentless rain. The wilderness is beautiful and unforgiving. They finally find him in a remote fish packing plant, working alongside seasonal laborers. He's gaunt, his face shadowed by a beard and a deep scar along his temple. Tim calls his name, his voice tight. Ty? The man looks up, his hazel eyes filled with a deep, haunted confusion. Recognition flickers, a spark in the darkness, but it doesn't catch. He doesn't know his own name. Tim, his own eyes welling up, starts talking, telling him about Heartland, about Amy, about a little girl named Lindy. The man, who the locals just called Doc, touches the small wooden wolf in his pocket. I made this, he whispers. I don't know why. Scott, seeing his fragile state, knows they can't force it. He gently explains that a storm is rolling in and they need to get him somewhere safe, back to a place where he can heal. That's up. He agrees, not out of recognition, but with the weary resignation of a man who has been adrift for too long. Back in Hudson, Lou finally tells Amy everything. She lays the journal on the table, shows her the photo, explains the search. Amy listens in stunned silence, her face pale. Thunder cracks outside as the storm hits the foothills. She picks up the journal, her fingers tracing the shaky handwriting. She looks at Jack, who puts a steadying arm around her. She takes out her phone and sends a single text to Scott's satellite phone. Bring him home. Bring him home. We'll remember for him until he can. The journey back is fraught with challenges. An early snowstorm grounds their flight out of the north. They're stuck for 3 days in a small motel. Ty is withdrawn, plagued by fevers and fragmented nightmares of fire and falling trees. Scott tends to him while Tim reads aloud from a children's book Lindy had packed in his bag, a story about a girl and her horse. Sometimes a word will get through. Amy, he'll murmur, or Spartan. Other times, he's lost in the fog. Scott starts making notes, a roadmap for the long journey of memory recovery that lies ahead. There are no cameras when they finally land in Calgary. Lou made sure of that. Tim and Scott guide Ty through the terminal. He moves like a man in a dream, flinching at the bright lights and loud noises. Jack and Lou are waiting with the truck. The drive back to Heartland is quiet. As they pull up the long lane at sunrise, Amy is standing on the porch. Spartan is in the paddock behind her, his head up, ears forward. Ty gets out of the truck, clutching the small wooden wolf. His eyes scan the landscape, the barn, the house, a flicker of something primal and deeply buried stirring within him. Spartan lets out a long, low whinny. Spartan, Ty says, his voice raspy, barely a whisper, but it's his voice. Amy's resolve breaks and tears stream down her face. She walks towards him slowly, as if approaching a frightened colt. Tim puts a hand on Ty's shoulder. Ty, that's Amy. The name hangs in the air. He looks at her, truly looks at her at the hope and fear and impossible love shining in her eyes. He takes a hesitant step forward, then another. Amy, he says, this time a question and a statement all in one. She closes the distance between them and they collapse into each other's arms, a desperate anchoring embrace against the storm of the lost years. Recovery is a slow, winding road. Ty remembers veterinary medicine with perfect clarity, but his personal life is a jigsaw puzzle with most of the pieces missing. He knows Lindy's laugh sounds familiar, but is startled by how tall she is. Some days he'll wake up thinking he's still a troubled kid living in the loft. Other days, a whole memory will surface with stunning clarity. The smell of the apple blossoms on his wedding day, the feeling of Lindy's tiny hand in his, only to vanish again by noon. Therapy involves photo albums, music, and long rides with Amy on their horses, letting the familiar rhythm jog his memory. Every recovered moment is a victory. The night they spent camping by the river, the taste of Lisa's cherry pie, the first time he held his daughter. The nightmares are relentless. Amy stays with him through the nights he thrashes and calls out about being trapped, about the smoke and the fear. In the daytime, she is his rock, celebrating every small step forward, every time he hums his tuneless hum while fixing a fence, every time he instinctively reaches for her hand. Lindy becomes his little guide, drawing him pictures of their family and telling him stories about her daddy as if he were a character in a book. Ty pins the drawings to the wall, his own personal map back to himself. The legal chaos is immense. Revoking a death certificate, dealing with insurance, and fending off the press becomes Lou's full-time job. The family closes ranks, presenting a united front and a simple request for privacy. Nathan, with quiet grace, steps aside. He takes a job heading a horse therapy program on the West Coast. At his farewell party, he raises a glass to Amy's strength and to Heartland's ability to produce miracles. As autumn deepens, Ty and Amy start a weekend program for first responders, using the gentle work of horse training as therapy. Ty's confidence grows with each session. He finds himself explaining a horse's body language, his hands moving with an old, familiar certainty, and he'll catch Amy watching him, a proud, loving smile on her face. Their partnership feels like a melody they are slowly relearning. One clear, cold night, Amy leads him to the ridge overlooking the ranch. She's packed a thermos of his favorite hot chocolate and a blanket. They sit in comfortable silence, watching the stars. I carved this when I felt most lost, Ty says, holding the wooden wolf. I didn't know what home was, but I think I knew it felt like this. Like you. Amy takes his hand. Home was always here waiting. A meteor streaks across the sky. I remember, Ty whispers, his voice thick with emotion. I remember making a wish with you on a night just like this, before Lindy was born. It's the first memory of them, of their shared past, that he has recalled entirely on his own. Amy leans her head on his shoulder as tears of joy freeze on her cheeks. Let's make another one, she says. Winter arrives, blanketing the world in white. During the annual family trip to cut down a Christmas tree, Lindy rides with Ty in the old sleigh. She presses a small bundle of sage into his hand. For good dreams, Daddy, she says seriously. As he takes it, the sharp, clean scent hits him, and something breaks loose. A flood of images, sharp and clear. Amy hanging sage in the barn loft when they first moved in, the smell of it mixing with the hay and the horses, the way the light looked on her hair as she told him they were going to have a baby. He sinks to his knees in the snow, overwhelmed. Amy, he gasps, I remember the loft. And then it all comes pouring out, a torrent of memories one after another. Not everything is there, the gaps are still present, but they are no longer terrifying voids. They are just empty pages, waiting for new stories to be written. The final scene of the season finds them on the porch swing. Snow is falling softly. Lindy is asleep between them, her small hand holding the wooden wolf. We found our way back, Amy whispers into the quiet night. Ty kisses the top of her head, and we'll keep finding it every day. Across the yard, Spartan looks toward the house and lets out a soft nicker, a gentle sound in the vast, hopeful mold.